Shalom, everyone, and welcome to our Shabbat night class, lesson 5, Chayei, from Genesis 23, verse 1, all the way to chapter 25, verse 18. This is our 5th lesson on our way into 52 lessons that'll get us through the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, in 1 year. So I say shalom to you and welcome. Remember that Torah means instructions. And so that what is nomos or law in Greek was translated from the Hebrew word Torah. And rather than say law, it means instructions. So these are the instructions that the Creator gave to Noah to write down while the children of Israel were at Mount Sinai. So welcome to our class. We're going to wait a minute or so until everyone gets an opportunity to join us on tonight. And we're going to have a great time on our lesson for tonight. So shalom, everyone. And let's give about a minute because we have an interesting lesson on tonight. We have enjoyed our period of study to present this information to you. And we have an interesting title. And that title is Chayei, Chayei, Sarah or Sarah. And so we're going to have a great time going through our lesson. Get your Bibles ready. I hope you have your notes that I sent out so that you can kind of follow along. It kind of gives us an outline of how the lesson is going to flow because normally whatever the title of the lesson is, it kind of flows throughout the entire lesson. However, on tonight, even though we're going to have a great lesson, it's titled The Life of Sarah or Sarah, and it starts with her death. And so in our lesson, we're going to see many things that transpired right after her death, which took place at Sarah's age of 127 years old. And as we go through our lesson, we'll see where by the end of the lesson, of course, Abraham will have died. And so we're going to see a transition in our lesson from the patriarch Abraham and his wife Sarah to Isaac and his wife Rebecca. And so the second of the patriarchs, Isaac, is now going to hear from the Lord, and the Lord will reaffirm many of the same things that he said to Abraham. And so there is a transition. And in the Hebrew understanding of the culture, it's the passing on through Sarah, whose child Isaac is going to inherit the promises and pass it on through his descendants. And so it's kind of a passing of the torch from the mother of Isaac to, in fact, Isaac. And so as we get into our outline, we're going to see some fascinating things about our lesson on tonight. So we have waited a couple of minutes. We're going to pray. The rest of the people that will join us on our lesson tonight will come along as we go because we want to make sure that we try to condense it as much as we can to get all of the information that we want to share with you on tonight. So let us pray, and then we're going to get started. Jehovah our Elohim, we welcome you And we thank you for this opportunity to study your word, to study to show ourselves approved, workmen not ashamed of our hire, rightly dividing the words of truth. We thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit that comes to guide us into all truth. So, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we pray this prayer. Amen and amen. All right, with that, let's get our slide presentation ready. And do. Okay. And we somebody's trying to get in. So now let me see. I gotta try to get them in. So let me go back up at the top and see what participants are trying to get in. Oh no, maybe not. Okay. All right. So that says no. All right. So let's get into our slideshow presentation on tonight, and we will start. All right. This is lesson 5 of 52 lessons. The title is the CH when it's in is like it's a guttural sound, Chayei. And so it's Chayei Sarah from Genesis 23, verse 1 through chapter 25, verse 18. Excuse me. And we're going to get started with our lesson. And if you have your did I forget to bring up my outline? Let me see. I think I forgot to bring up my outline. Let's see. Let's see if I can get my outline together. Well, I don't think I have it. So let me get my outline up here. Here we are. Okay. So in our outlines, um, in our general overview, in this week's Torah reading, Chayei Sarah, Sarah will die, and Abraham will purchase the cave at Machpelah as a burial plot for his wife. And then Abraham's servant will travel to Aram to find a wife for Isaac. Isaac will marry Rebekah, and then Abraham will die. So all of that is going to transpire in our lesson on tonight. And so as we get into this lesson, once again, we're going to see that the torch is being passed. The lineage is being passed of the promise from Abraham to Isaac, and from Sarah or Sarah to Rivkah or Rebekah. So from the Bible translation I use, it will say Rivkah, and in English, that's the Hebrew name, it is Rebekah. And so we're going to see all of that transpire in our lesson on today. We're going to begin in our first section where we're going to start, and it'll be from Genesis 23, verses 1 through 16. So it's probably going to take 2 slides to get through our first section, but let us get there. And it's going to say, as we look at our outline, we're going to see where her grieving husband, Sarah, will die at the age of 127, and her grieving husband, Abraham, identified a plot in the city of Hebron that he wished to procure or purchase for use as a family burial ground. This plot, a cave situated in the Machpelah field, belonged to Ephron the Hittite. So Abraham is going to approach the Hittite tribe and ask for permission to purchase the parcel of land. Originally, Ephron wished to give the plot to Abraham as a gift, but Abraham insisted on paying full price, and the acquisition will be concluded with Abraham paying over 400 silver pieces or coins for this particular cave and surround the little land surrounding that cave. So it's interesting because of the price for such a parcel of land is outlandish. We learned in the book of Jeremiah, for instance, where he was told by Jehovah to purchase plot of land before the people were taken into captivity, and he paid 17 shekels or premium coins for that particular plot of land. And so we see that 400 in the lesson's going to let us know it's 10 pounds of silver for that particular parcel of land, which was outlandish. However, Abraham was willing to pay that to make sure that there wouldn't be any dissension later about who that land belonged to. We also may notice as we get out of this slide and get into our lesson slide that I don't know what happened. So, oh, I got to hide my meeting. There we go. Now we're in. All right. So now I got you back in. So in any case, we see in our outline what's going to transpire in this particular portion, but it's interesting that Abraham was willing to pay such a ridiculously high price for this plot of land. So as our lesson begins in Genesis chapter 23, verse 1, Sarah lived to be 127 years old. We know that about that time now, since she was what, 90 when Isaac was born. So Isaac is about 37 years old when his mother passed away. These were the years of Sarah's life. And so Sarah lived is that Chayei Sarah. She lived this period of time, and that's the Hebrew for the title of our lesson. Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, also known as Hebron. So Hebron has many names, of which one of them is Kiryat Arba, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn Sarah and weep for her. Normally, this would be a period of at least 7 days. So her body would be wrapped and placed somewhere because, of course, with herbs and things around it, because, of course, after 4 days, the body will begin to smell. So in some cases, it could even be buried and then taken up and put into a cave. So it goes on in verse 3 and says, then he got up from his dead one and said to the sons of Het, I am a foreigner living as an alien with you. So now he goes to the what? The gate of the city where the elders of the city are meeting, and he goes and sits among them because he is of such a status as being very wealthy, very powerful, and known throughout the land. But the land has not been given to him. So he says in verse 4, I am a foreigner living as an alien with you. Let me have a burial site with you so that I can bury my dead wife. The sons of Het answered Abraham, listen to us, my Lord. You are a prince of God among us. So choose any of our tombs to bury your dead. Not one of us would refuse you his tomb for burying your dead. So this is the prestige and the power of Abraham and the wealth that Abraham had generated by this particular point of time. And so they're saying, we'll just give it to you. He goes on. Abraham gets up, bowed before the people of the land, the sons of Het, and spoke with them. If it is your desire to help me bury my dead, then listen to me. Ask Ephron, the son of Zohar, to give me the cave at Machpelah, which he owns, the one at the end of his field. He should sell it to me in your presence at its full value. then I will have a burial site of my own. So if it was something that was given to him, then upon the death of this person or something like that, then the land might be, the purchase may be taken back. But since it is going to be a purchase, which is what Abraham desires, then that goes on forever and no one can come and try to reclaim it. So he says, I will pay its full value. Then I will have the burial site of my own. Ephron the Hittite was among the sons of Het, and he gave Abraham his answer in the presence of the sons of Het, who belonged to the ruling council of the city. Slide 2 says, verse 11, no, my Lord, listen to me. I am giving you the field with this cave. So now Ephron says, no, I'm going to give it to you. I'm giving it to you. In the presence of my people, I give it to you. Abraham bowed before the people of the land and spoke to Ephron in their hearing. Please be good enough to listen to me. I will pay the full price of the field. Accept it from me, and I will bury my dead there. But Ephron answered Abraham, my Lord, listen to me. A plot of land worth 400 silver shekels. Now, this is a plot of land that at 10 to 15 shekels would have been a lot, but he says worth 400 silver shekels. So he's greatly put the price, inflated the price of the land. He says, what is that between me and you? And that's why I highlight that, because that is a way of bartering, but he's also saying a price so high. Why? Because he knows of the power and the wealth of Abraham. So he knows that Abraham has that. And since he said, I will pay the full price, basically saying whatever you ask, then he gives him a ridiculous price. Abraham got the point of what Ephraim had said, so he weighed out for Ephraim the amount of money he had specified in the presence of the sons of Het. 400 silver shekels of the weight accepted among merchants. There weren't coins back then. It would be 400 pieces of silver of some type put on a scale, and it's worth 10 pounds. So Abraham then takes out 10 pounds of silver and gives it to Ephraim in the presence of all of these people so that he could purchase this land for the burial of not only his wife, but also himself. Now, in some of the Jewish scholars have said that this particular cave is also a cave where Adam and Eve were also buried. And so I can't say that's a stretch. That's not because of the amount of study that goes into something and to make a statement like that. However, that would be something that certainly could be argued because of the time span that existed there. However, that is what some of the lessons that you study concerning this particular lesson, that's what will be said as justification for why Abraham was willing to pay such an inflated price for the cave. Also, Mekbalah really means double. So it is believed it was a cave with two sections of it, and they believe that in the one section would have been the burial of Adam and Eve. And so that ends our first section of our lesson. So let's see if we don't have anything in the chat. So we will go back and get into our next section, section 2. As we look at our outline, let me see if I can get back to my outline. And on my outline, hope you can see it. Session 2 says, having acquired the land, Abraham bought the land, Abraham buried Sarah in the cave of Machpelah. At this point, Abraham then summons his servant and charged him with the mission of finding a suitable wife for his son Isaac. Abraham had his servant swear that he would not take a wife for Isaac from the local Canaanite women. Instead, he asked him to travel to Aram, his native land, and find a wife for Isaac there. So this would be in the land of Haran, which is where Abraham's father took them from Ur of the Chaldeans to the land of Haran, stayed there rather than go all the way into the land of Canaan, stayed there, and from there, Jehovah spoke to Abraham and told him to go to this place of Haran and find a wife for his son. Remember that it's somewhere around, it's after the death of Sarah, so Isaac would be late 30s, going towards 40, because he would be 37 at the time of the death of Sarah. So now we're going to read the second section, which is Genesis 23 and 14. I'm sorry, chapter 23, verse 17, all the way to chapter 24, verse 9. Chapter 24 is the longest chapter in the book of Genesis. Bereshit, the longest chapter, is chapter 24. And so that's why it looks like we're only doing a couple of chapters, but chapter 24 is so long, and there's going to be a lot of repetition in this particular lesson. So with that, let's get back to our lesson. And wait a minute, I got to bring it back up. Where are you, lesson? Where is my lesson? Let's see. Now I gotta find my lesson to see where it is. It's not showing up here. I got to go through all of this now to get into my lesson. All right, I think we got back. So let's get to our lesson. Second section, Genesis 23, verse 17. Thus the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which is by Mamre, another place or location where this tree is in Hebron. Its cave and all the trees in and around it were deeded to Abraham as his possession in the presence of the sons of Het, who belonged to the ruling council of the city. Then Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field at Machpelah by Mamre, also known as Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and its cave had been purchased by Abraham from the sons of Het as a burial site, which would then belong to him. So there can be no disputing this. There is a sealed deed given to Abraham concerning this parcel of land. Now we get to chapter 24. By now, Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Jehovah had blessed Abraham in everything. So if Sarah died at 127, then at that point, Abraham would be 137 when she died. And so he's also advanced in years. And so he calls, after the death of his wife, once again, continuing the story of Sarah, after the death of his wife and his mourning period is over, which could be up to minimum 30 days, and it could be all the way up to a year's time. Abraham then sends for his servant, and it says in verse 2, Abraham said to the servant who had served him the longest, it didn't give a name, just said the servant. Most scholars will say it is Eliezer, who was in charge of all he owned. He says, put your hand under my thigh. because I want you to swear by Jehovah, Elohim of heaven and Elohim of the earth, that you will not choose a wife for my son from among the women of the Canaanites, among whom I am living, but that you will go to my homeland, to my kinsman, to choose a wife for my son Isaac or Yitzhak. The servant replied, suppose the woman isn't willing to follow me to this land. Must I bring your son back to the land from which you came, or take Isaac back to Haran? Abraham said to him, see to it that you don't bring my son back there. You don't take him back there. Jehovah, the Elohim of heaven, who took me away from my father's house and away from the land I was born in. Remember, there was two parts to that. His father's house, which had been settled in Haran, and then the land from which he was born in, which was Ur of the Chaldeans. So he said, took him from both of those places. And he said, the land which I was born in, who spoke to me and swore to me, I will give this land to your descendants. He will send his angel ahead of you, and you ought to bring a wife for my son from there. So Abraham is basically telling him that the same Jehovah that guided him all the way from Ur of the Chaldeans into Haran, and from Haran into Canaan, will send an angel ahead of you to make sure this comes to be. He says, however, if the woman is unwilling to follow you, then you are released from your obligation under my oath. Just don't bring back my son there. So he's basically saying you can never take my son there out of the land of Canaan. And we know that Isaac never left the land of Canaan. The servant put his hand under the thigh of Abram, which was a way of swearing by the very seed of the man that this matter would be done. And he swore to him concerning the matter. Second section. Now, that's the end of the second section. So now we're going to go into the third section. In the third section, if you look at your outline, your third section, which is going to be also 2 slides, in your third section, it's going to go all the way from Genesis 24 and 18 all the way to Genesis chapter 24, verse 26. So it's going to go from 10 all the way to 26. So that's going to take us basically 2 slides. And so in the third section, we're going to find out how this all transpired. The servant set out for his master's homeland, and evening time found him beside the city well. So this is what our outline says. He prayed for success in his mission and asked for a heavenly sign to confirm his choice of a girl for Isaac. He would ask a maiden for a drink of water. This is what he pledged before, vowed before Jehovah. And he would ask the maiden for a drink of water, and the one who would answer, certainly, I'll also give your camels to drink as well, would be the proper servants, would be the proper choice for Isaac. Immediately then, he's going to see a young lady who is going to approach the well, and he's going to ask her for a drink. The servant she's going to offer not only to give him a drink, but also to give his camels, who drink a whole lot, and are at least 10 camels kneeling there around this trough. So she's going to pour enough water in this trough to fill up 10 camels. So that's going to be interesting. And then upon questioning her, the servant is going to discover that she was indeed Abraham's family, or his great niece and her name was Rebecca. So the servant is going to find all this out in our third section, which goes from Genesis 24, verse 10, all the way to verse 26, of which this slide goes to 18. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and all kinds of gifts from his master, got up and went to Aram Naharim, or to Nahor's city, which had been named Haran. This is where they settled, and this is where Nahor, the father of Abraham, died, and Abraham left there and went into the land of Canaan. Toward evening, when the women go out to draw water, he had camels kneel down outside the city by the well. Verse 12, he said, Jehovah Elohim of my master Abraham, please let me succeed today and show your grace to my master Abraham. Here I am, standing by the spring, as the daughters of the town folks come out to draw water. I will say to one of the girls, please lower your jug so that I can drink. If she answers, yes, drink, and I will water your camels as well, then let her be the one you intend for your servant, Yitzhak or Isaac. This is how I will know that you have shown grace to my master. So the servant then kneels down and prays this while he is waiting at the well for the women to come out and draw water for the evening meal and for the cleaning of people after the meal. So, right about that time, verse 15 says, before he had finished speaking or praying, Rivkah, which is Rebecca in English, in Hebrew is Rivkah, the daughter of Batuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her jug on her shoulder. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin. So the first part of his prayer, we see that the girl came out and was very beautiful, and now he's going to get into the understanding of who this woman is. Does it fulfill what he has prayed to Jehovah to manifest? He goes on, the girl was very beautiful, a virgin, never having had sexual relations with a man. In Hebrew, the same word for virgin could mean a young woman. So it also points out so that in the Hebrew, it lets us know that she had never had relations with a man. So she was a young woman that was pure from any kind of relations with a man. She went down to the spring, filled her jug, and brought it back up. The servant ran to meet her and said, please give me a sip of water from your jug to drink. Drink, my lord, she replied, and immediately lowered her jug onto her arm, took it off her shoulder, put it on her arm, and let him drink. So the first part of his prayer was answered because why? She is very hospitable, just like Sarah, just like Sarah, who was known for her hospitality and the fact that she was more than willing to feed strangers as if and make them guests in their tents. And so that part of it had already happened. She says, being very hospitable, not only that, we'll find out in our next slide, that when she was through letting him drink, she said, I will also draw water for your camels until they have drunk their fill. So now she's very hospitable, and she is going to do that part that he asked. She's going to fill up the trough so that the camels can drink. She quickly emptied her jug into the trough, then ran again to the well to draw water, and kept on drawing water for all his camels. So she went back maybe 20 times or so to get water so that the camels would get their fill. Then the servant gazed at her in silence, waiting to find out whether Jehovah had made his trip successful or not. There's another part to his question, and that was, she has to be of the family of Abraham. So the first part of being hospitable like Sarah, beautiful like Sarah, that was done. Now he got to find out, now is she also a member of Abraham's family. When the camels were done drinking, the man took a gold nose ring weighing 1/5 of an ounce and 2 gold bracelets weighing 4 ounces and a half. So he gives her those for what she had been so kind to do. Then he says, excuse me, whose daughter are you? Tell me, please, is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? She answered, I am the daughter of Batuel, the son Milcah bore to Nahor. Nahor is Abraham's brother. So his wife has had a son. So Rivkah or Rebecca is the grandson of Nahor. So that is definitely part of Abraham's family. Adding, we have plenty of straw and fodder and room for staying overnight, something that Abraham and Sarah did for all guests that would pass by their dwelling place. The man bowed his head and prayed and prostrated himself before Jehovah. And so now he is so grateful that Jehovah has answered his prayer. She's beautiful, hospitable, and a member of the family of Abraham, of Nahor, Abraham's uncle. And so this fulfills his pledge. Jehovah has already delivered to him this part of what his master has requested of him. With that, we have completed the third section, and now we're going to go into the fourth section. So as you look at your outline, the fourth section is going to go from Genesis chapter 24. Remember, chapter 24 is the longest chapter in the book of Genesis. We're going to go in this fourth section all the way to verse 52. So we're going to have 3 slides in this particular section. So in here, we're going to find out that Rebecca is going to go and tell her mother about what has transpired with this man at the well. And her brother, who is Laban, will go out and greet the servant and invite him to spend the night. This is the same Laban that Jacob is going to go and have to deal with later on when he's running from Esau. He's going to deal with the same man because obviously Laban is the brother of Rebecca. The servant told her is going to tell Rebecca's family the purpose of his mission to the city. This is where he's going to begin to repeat what he was instructed to do. And he's going to recount the heavenly sign that designated Rebecca as his master's son's wife. All of this is to make sure now this is the woman that he can take back to Abraham and keep the promise that he has sworn to do. So with that, we're going to get into the fourth section and see what the scriptures have indicated. Verse 27, chapter 24, verse 27. Then he said, blessed be Jehovah Elohim of my master Abraham, meaning the servant, who have not abandoned his faithful love for my master, because Jehovah has guided me to the house. Remember, Abraham told him the angel of Jehovah would guide him to the house. And remember, it can be interchangeable where it says Jehovah or the angel of Jehovah can be interchangeable in Hebrew, and you'll see both in the writing. Guided me to the house of my master's kinsman. That has transpired. The girl ran off and told her mother's household what had happened, because she would go and report to her mother, because the mother's tent in many times could be separated from the father's. And being the daughter, she would have most of her dealings would be with her mother and not very much with her father, because the mother is going to teach her the things of being a woman. And so what had happened, she tells her what had happened. Then Rivkah has a brother named Laban, or in English is Laban, which, as a matter of fact, is later going to be known as the land of Lebanon. And when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrist beside, he see this gold all on her. When he heard her report of what the man had said to her, he ran out to the spring and found the man standing there by the camel. Come on in, he said, you whom Jehovah has blessed. So you notice in this, it says Jehovah. So he uses the word that Rebekah has told him concerning the God who has proven prophetic utterance to this servant. He says, why are you standing outside when I have made room in the house and prepared a place for the camel? So the man went inside, and while the camels were being unloaded, he saw, remember, about 10 camels loaded with merchandise and stuff. And so he is happy to unload all of this. And he provided straw and fodder. Water was brought for him to wash his feet and the feet of the men with him, which was the tradition for the people of that culture at that time to clean their feet before entering into the home. But when a meal was set before him, meaning the servant, he said, verse 33, I won't eat until I say what I have to say. Laban said, then speak. He said, I am Abraham's servant. Jehovah has greatly blessed my master so that he has grown wealthy. Well, the 10 camels demonstrate part of the wealth of how wealthy Abraham was, that he could present all of these gifts as kind of a dowry for this wife. He says, he has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male and female slaves. Remember, he had at least 318 fighting men in his household that he was able to muster an army for. He said, so he goes on and says, Sarah, my master's wife, bore my master a son when she was old, and he has given him everything he had. Sarah was 90 years old when Isaac was born. But he also notes, as he once again, we're finding that what happened, the life of Sarah and what's been passed on, the servant is repeating that she was what? Very old when she bore a child. That was what? A miracle of the same God that had directed the servant to this family. And he has given to him, this son of Sarah, everything he has. So he's already made mention of the fact, this will that he had, that everything goes to Isaac. Second slide of the fourth section says, verse 37. My master made me swear, saying, you are not to choose a wife for my son from among the women of Canaan, among whom I am living. Rather, you are to go to my father's house, to my kinsman, to choose a wife for my son. I said to my master, suppose the woman isn't willing to follow me. Abraham answered me and said, Jehovah, in whose presence I live, will send his angel with you to make your trip successful. And you ought to pick a wife for my son from my kinsman in my father's house. And so he's repeating this situation verbatim as a messenger will do. This will release you from your obligation under my oath. But if when you come to my kinsmen, they refuse to give her to you, this too will release you from my oath. So today I came to the spring and said, Jehovah Elohim of my master. He keeps repeating these things to show the divine intervention of the Elohim that he serves by the name of Jehovah. If you are causing my trip to succeed in its purpose, then here I am standing by the spring. I will say to one of the girls coming out to draw water, let me have a sip of water from your jug. If she answers yes, drink. and I will water your camels as well. Then let her be the woman you intend for my master's son. So he's using this divine intervention also to make sure his mission is successful. And even before I had finished speaking to my heart or this prayer, there came Rebecca or Rivkah going out with her jug on her shoulder. She went down to the spring and drew water. When I said to her, please let me have a drink, she immediately lowered the jug from her shoulder, and said, drink, and I will water your camels as well. So I drank, and she had the camels drink too. The final slide of this section, the fourth section. Verse 47, I asked her, whose daughter are you? And she answered, the daughter of Batuel, son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him. Then I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her wrist. Now he's changed this a little bit because what he did was put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her wrist as Haman before he found out that she was the daughter of Bethuel. I bowed my head, prostrated myself before Jehovah, and blessed Jehovah, Elohim of my master Abraham, for having led me in the right way to obtain my master's brother's granddaughter for his son. So now, verse 49, if you people intend to show grace and truth to my master, tell me. But if not, tell me, so that I can turn elsewhere. Laban and Bethuel replied, since this comes from Jehovah, we can't say anything to you, either good or bad. Rivkah is here in front of you. Take her and go. Let her be your master's son's wife, as Jehovah has said. When Abraham's servant heard what they said, he prostrated himself on the ground to Jehovah. So he thanks Jehovah for making his mission successful because they have agreed that Rebecca or Rivkah can go. And so the divine intervention of Jehovah, the God of Abraham, which he says here, the God of Abraham, the Elohim of my master Abraham. In verse 48, he says that. So they are acknowledging this God, because when you go to a different territory, there may be a different God over that territory, but they recognize the power of this God because they got many gods. But the power of this God has been revealed to them, and they're acknowledging it and saying she should then go. We can't, wow, how are we going to tell this God to the land where we're going to send her? Because this dowry, they know how big it is. They taking that and they want her to go. So this will end our fourth section, and we'll go on to our fifth section, which also has 2 slides. Rebecca's family will celebrate the engagement together with Abraham's servant. The next morning, the servant is going to insist on immediately returning to his master with the maiden in hand. And after Rebecca will agree to this, then they will set out for Canaan. Isaac will then marry Rebecca in this particular section and then love her and finally found consolation for the loss of his mother. So we're going to see all of that in section 5, which is from Genesis 24, verses 53 through 67. Our first slide is 53, verses 53 through 60. Then the servant brought out silver and gold jewelry together with clothing and gave them to Rebekah or Rivkah. He also gave valuable gifts to her brother and mother. He and his men then ate and drank and stayed the night. In the morning they got up, and he said, send me off to my master. Her brother and mother said, let the girl stay with us a few days, at least 10, and after that she will go, or we will send her. So they want him to stay longer, and he's saying, no, I want to go right now. Why? Because he knows that in obedience to Jehovah, Abraham would immediately act on what Jehovah had spoken to him. So the servant understands that, and he wants to immediately act on what Jehovah has done for him in this situation. So he answers them, don't delay me, since Jehovah has made my trip successful, but let me go back to my master. They said, we will call the girl and see what she said. They called Rivkah and asked her, will you go with this man? And she replied, I will. So we see that the normal procedure for a situation of this type is they would have wedding ceremonies and vows and everything else right there, and then send the girl off to be with her, to be and greet and meet with her future husband. But in this case, the servant ain't having that. He's saying, I need to do this right away to please this God. And so they sent their sister Rebecca Rivkah away with her nurse, Abraham's servant, and his men. So now they're going back immediately the next day to go back to the land of Canaan. They blessed Rebekah with these words, our sister, may you be the mother of millions, and may your descendants possess the cities of those who hate them. And so now she's going to be a royal princess of this man, Isaac, who's like a king, is a prince of Abraham, his son. So he's the prince. She's going to be the princess of Isaac. And so they're praying this prayer because they're going to send her on her way because they won't have the time to do all of what they would normally do in this situation. And so with that, we are going to get to the second part of our fifth section. Then Rebekah and her maids mounted the camels and followed the man. So the servant took Rebekah, Rivkah, and went on his way. Meanwhile, Isaac, one evening after coming along the road from Be'er Lahai Roi, he was living in the Negev, went out walking in the field, and as he looked up, he saw camels approaching. Rivkah too looked up. So there was some distance here, but he happens to go out. So Jehovah is orchestrating all of this. Rebekah too looked up, and when she saw Isaac, Yitzhak, she quickly dismounted the camel. She said to the servant, who is this man walking in the field to meet us? When the servant replied, it's my master, she took her veil and covered herself. So if you ever, we have gone to Egypt and Israel, but in Egypt, been on a camel. And when they lower that camel down, it's frightening because that camel is going, you got to lean back. Otherwise, when that camel bends down, you'll tumble over. So you got to lean back. So when Johari and I were on the camel, and the camel, it was time for us to get off, and the camel starts to kneel down, then I have to lean back and hold on to her so she don't tumble off. And so it can be kind of nerve-wracking. Well, this is what she's doing because she's riding on the camel, usually with one of her maids along with her. So as the camel goes down, she will then dismount. The servant told Isaac everything he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took, in other words, they consummated their marriage and she became his wife. And he loved her. And it's interesting that it didn't say he loved her first. No, this was his wife. So the emotional aspect of accepting her as his wife, he already had done, but he later loved her. So he demonstrated his care and concern for her by loving her. This is the duty of a man with his wife. You take a wife and then you demonstrate your appreciation for her and you love her. And so that's why this is highlighted here, and it's highlighted when you study the various studies of this particular lesson. They will highlight this aspect of male-female relationship. Also, we will notice that Isaac is comforted for the loss of his mother. So again, we see Sarah introduced in this lesson in this section where Isaac is now comforted because this tent that was left barren has now been filled by Rebecca or Rivka. With that, we go to section 6, which is going to be one slide. And if you look at your outline, Abraham is going to remarry. He's going to father several more children. And before his death, however, Abraham gave gifts to all of them and sent them away. Before his death, he doesn't want any strain whatsoever in Isaac being his heir in this land of Canaan. And so we're going to be in Genesis chapter 25, verses 1 through 11. Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimron, Yokshan, Medan, Midian. Midian is an important, we're going to find out that the tribe of Midian is one of the tribes that are going to be in the land that the children of Israel will come back to take when they come to take the land of Canaan. Yishbak and Shua, and Yokshan fathered Sheva and Dadan. The sons of Dadan were Ashurim, Latushim, and Laumim. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Anok, Avida, and Eldad. All these were descendants of Keturah. Now, when you study this name, Keturah, many studies say that this was, in fact, Hagar. Can't necessarily, you got to reach a little bit to find that, but they say that Hagar came back. And so in some of the writings, it will say that when it says that Abraham took another wife, it will say Abraham married Hagar again. So Abraham gave everything he owned to Isaac, but to the sons of the concubine, he made grants while he was still living and sent them off to the east, to the land of Kedem, away from Yitzhak, his son. And so Abraham made sure that upon his passing, only Isaac would be there as his chief heir. This is how long Abraham lived, 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last, dying at a ripe old age, an old man full of years, and he was gathered to his people. Remember, at 175 years, Isaac would be 75 years old because he was born when Abraham was 100, so he would be 75 years old. So Isaac wasn't no young whippersnapper at this time. So he had 75 years of learning and under the understanding and teaching of his father, Abraham. Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, by Mamre. Remember, that is in Hebron, the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Hitt. Abraham was buried there with Sarah, his wife. And Abraham, after Abraham died, Elohim blessed Isaac, his son, and Yitzhak lived near Be'er Lahai, Rui. And so this is going to get us to the 7th section, and the 7th section is going to give us the descendants and the death of Ishmael. Here we go. Here is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Egyptian woman, bore to Abraham. Remember, Ishmael was circumcised along with all of the household of Abraham when Abraham was 99 years old. So he was considered even though he was going to be a wild man, still a righteous son. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael listed in the order of their birth. The firstborn of Ishmael was Navajo, followed by Kader, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Masa, Hadad, Teima, Yatur, Naphish, and Kedma. These are the sons of Ishmael. These are their names according to their settlements and camps, 12 tribal rulers. Remember when the angel met Hagar, told her that he was going to be great and from him would come 12 kings? Here they are right here, the 12 tribal rulers. This is how long Ishmael lived, 137 years. So at the death of Abraham, Ishmael would be about 60 something years old. So he lived about 60 years after the death of Abraham. So he was 137 years old, which would make Isaac somewhere around 120 something years old at the death of Ishmael. And it was at that time that he breathed his last, died, and was gathered to his people. Ishmael's sons lived between Havilah and Shur near Egypt. As you go towards Ashur, he settled near his kinsmen. So this completes this particular study of Chayei Sarah, or the life of Sarah. And we see all interspersed throughout this, even into the end, it was the life and death of these various patriarchs in the life of the Sarah, Abraham, Ishmael, all dying during this particular lesson. And we see the time span. So remember on our chart, if you looked at our chart, you would see that even the sons of Isaac, Jacob and Esau, lived to study under Abraham. And since Jacob is the one who loved to study and learn the things of Abraham, then he would spend more time with Abraham than Esau. And if you looked at the book of Jubilees, it would explain that in that book, you would see where it would talk about how Isaac went and studied under Abraham for those many years. Once he was of age, maybe like 7, then he would go and study. So he had a chance to study for 8 to 10 years under Abraham. And so he would have all of the knowledge of Abraham because Abraham died at a good old age. So therefore, he was very knowledgeable even up until he breathed his last. And so there's an interesting sidebar that we'll go ahead and touch on that is part of the bringing together of this lesson with the New Testament. And it's like, because of the amount of study and the extension of the lineage of righteousness, in Matthew chapter 25, there's a parable of the 10 virgins. And we're going to run through that right quick, and then we're going to close. The kingdom of heaven at that time will be like 10 bridesmaids. So this is Yeshua giving a parable, the parable of the 10 virgins, to his disciples. And he tells them that there will be 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went out to meet the groom. They all understand what is happening here. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were sensible. What is the lamps? That is basically understood in connection with the studying of Abraham and then of Isaac and then of Jacob. That is what is later to be called the Torah. So they are taking their Torah studies with them. So 5 of them are, however, going to be foolish. The foolish ones took their Torah studies with them, but no oil. The oil is symbolic of the Holy Spirit. So in other words, the whole concept that we're studying in this lesson was what? How Abraham would always immediately obey or show actions accompanying his faith in his trust in Jehovah. the servant did the very same thing. Not only that, but Laban and his family recognized and acted immediately on what Jehovah had told them. So this whole concept of immediate action is demonstrated in this particular lesson. So whereas the others took flasks of oil with their lamps, now the bridegroom was late. So they all went to sleep. It was in the middle of the night when the cry rang out that the groom is coming. So they never knew. It was after the groom had finished the dwelling place to bring his bride that he would come to get his bride. So their bridegroom is here, so they would go out to meet him. The girls all woke up and prepared their lamps for lighting. Once again, their knowledge of the word, this is symbolic for that. The foolish ones said to the sensible ones, hey, wait a minute. We need more time to get ready. Give us some of your oil because we don't feel spiritually ready to meet with the groom. They said, no, there may not be enough for both you and us. So you go out. Now you go study some more and buy some more for yourself. But as they were going off to buy, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. So now those that were ready to act on exactly what they understood by their whole understanding of what they had been taught, they go. But those who weren't ready yet go to get some more knowledge and come back. Well, they weren't ready. So they come later and say, now we're ready, let us in. But he answered, I tell you, I don't know you. So this parable is designed to teach them to act on faith. We see that in James, faith without works is dead. So if you don't have action that corresponds to what you say you believe, if that is not there, then you are not acting in faith. So we notice that he said, indeed, that they will tell you, I don't know you. In Matthew 7, verse 23, now everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, he said, not everyone will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do what my Father in heaven wants. So those who what? By faith act on, no matter what they are instructed in the word or through the Holy Spirit, they're going to act on it. Those who do act on it, on that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we expel demons in your name? Didn't we perform many miracles in your name? Then I will tell them to their faces, I never knew you. Get away from you, you workers of lawlessness. So in our parable of acting in faith and immediately acting on what it is, you believe you have been instructed through the word, through a prophetic word or whatever that is, you act on that, then in fact, you are doing and preparing yourself for future works ahead. If you're not doing that, then what you're going to do is try to go back and figure things out. And while you're doing that, you have missed an opportunity to do what? Increase your faith through your actions. Because when you don't do that, then in fact, you lose the benefit of what you have been instructed. So with that, we're going to close out our lesson. That close out our lesson for today. I think I went 15 over this time. No, didn't go 15 over. So only went 10 over. So that is good. I don't think we're going to be able to do an hour for a while, especially in Genesis, because there's so much to learn. With that, we're going to get out of this screen, get out of our shared screen, where you'll just see me. And with that, we're going to give our priestly blessing and close out for tonight. From Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 through 26, may Jehovah bless you and keep you. May Jehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And with that, I say shalom, and I will see you next Friday for lesson 6. And let me give you the chapter for lesson 6. I don't know why I didn't write that on this page, but it will be, it's called Holdot, or generations, and it'll be Genesis 25, verse 19, all the way to Genesis 28, verse 9. With that, shalom.